Hello, how are you? Welcome to Facebook Live Wednesdays with me. Hope you all had a nice 4th of July, whether you're in the US or not. Hope your July 4th was nice. Sorry for the casual attire, just did a live, and you can see this says Law of Attraction. I realized that there are actually more people on LinkedIn that are in tune with what that is than I thought, so thought I would wear it, even though it's not necessarily corporate attire, and we're going to be talking about corporate and career-related things. What we're talking about now is the fact that I guess I'm not surprised the data is showing this now, and multiple news medias are covering this now, but we have hit a high, a 17-year high of number of people who are quitting their jobs, and these people who quit their jobs are getting more money. And we've known for a while in the industry that changing jobs is unfortunately, the way to get more money. So more people are doing it more often, especially because there's not a lot of reward for staying with a company long time for most companies, which is kind of silly and ridiculous, which is why we're here talking about it, right? Because that is a change that is completely possible to make, and change can be arduous. It can be hard. There are challenges to change, but there are also a lot of ways that we know now change can happen quicker in a much easier way. And I don't know that we'll have time to talk about a lot of those today, maybe next week. Also, if you have any topics that are corporate related, career related, send them to me. I'd love to know what you want to talk about in this time. This is kind of like little mini lunch break conversation to talk about things that matter to us. If you're not taking little mini breaks to think about what matters to you, then it's a habit that is not helping you. It's not helping you figure out where you want to go. I talked to a lot of people who've just, they've ridden the train, did what they were supposed to do, and then they wake up one day and they're like, how did I get here? Where am I going? Am I where I want to be? Is there someplace better I could be? I was just talking to a client that I had many years ago, and he left his company, of course, many years ago when we worked together. But he left behind all these people, and a lot of them have left and moved on, but there are some people who are still there, and he knows that they would have liked to have moved on, but they put in 17 years, and they're just kind of riding it out until the end. But where he is now, it's, he's been with a company for 6 years now, and he looks back and he's like, wow, this was supposed to be a 3 to 5 year plan, but everything has been great, and now he's realizing, I've been here 6 years, that's longer than I even thought that I would, maybe it's time to start reflecting. And reflecting is something that, if you actually make it a habit and do it every so often, is going to help. That's another different topic. But if you want to talk about that more, let me know. So, 17-year high. 17 years ago, what was going on? Well, 9/11 went on. And we suffered a recession after 9/11. And yet still many people quit their jobs. Why? Because they realized that anything could happen at any moment, and they wanted to focus on what was most important to them. Now, money's important. We need it. We need money to live. And jobs are important when they enable you to make an impact, make a contribution, apply your skills and talents. You get a sense of fulfillment from them. It's hopefully for some people, at least for my clients, it's not just a way to make money. It's a way to be their full self in the world and bring forth and make an impact, influence some kind of change, create some kind of legacy, something that they can say, if anything were to happen and they were to pass from this life, my life mattered. And I don't know that that's necessarily what's happening now. What's happening now is more of a gradual, like, hey, why are we putting up with this from our company when there are other opportunities? This is a tremendously great job market, and people are just realizing that they don't have to stay even moderately satisfied in their jobs. They can leave their jobs and go find something that fulfills them more, that enables them to make a greater impact, and provides them something for their life that enables them to live a better lifestyle. So companies in Europe and some really good, name-worthy employers in the United States understand that if you give your employees access to the life that they want, that they are highly engaged. They are highly productive. They see what they do as important and meaningful, and they stay in a job because of that. So companies that are negatively impacting the planet, they're not going to be able to attract this type of talent, and they're not going to be able to retain this type of talent. So it's time for all companies to kind of take a look in the mirror and say, what are we doing with our people? So these people leave, they get better pay. They are not only leaving for better pay, but they're leaving for better growth. You must imagine, as a career coach, I talk to people every day, and I've been talking to people every day who want to leave their companies or have left their company and they're looking for something new. The people that I talk to nowadays, especially more so than ever in the past, who are working and they want to move on, I get to hear from them, why it is they want to move on. What would be the difference? It's important for me to know as a career coach, okay, what was it about your last situation that makes you want to look for something else? And what would be an improvement to that situation? Let's make sure that if we're going to do the work of branding you and getting you ready and developing a campaign that's going to be successful, that we understand what the target is. Let's make sure that the next step is an improvement upon your last step. And furthermore, that it helps position you for where you ultimately think you want to go right now. So people leave, they get better pay. They are able to make an impact. Maybe their input is more important. Maybe there are processes around providing input. They get to make a contribution. Maybe they get to add to their skill set. I mean, human nature is that we want to grow and expand. And when our growth and expansion is stifled, we get depressed and we get stressed. And disease happens. Our health is impacted by that. So let's think about this, okay? There's costs to all of this. So let's say somebody in your workforce leaves. They decide that they're going to get better pay somewhere else, which is really silly because you had them, you trained them, they have all the knowledge capital that you would have needed to move some initiatives forward. They leave, initiatives have to be switched around, maybe even stopped. Other resources have to come in. Okay, these other resources have to come in, and in order to move things forward, which is going to happen at a much slower pace, okay, some deliverables might be at stake if your person leaves. Everybody else moves in. Now, once everybody else moves in and their capacity is filled up, maybe even stretched beyond really what they can be producing, productivity goes down. Morale goes down. And, sickness, more stress, more sickness, so things get halted even more. And then furthermore, if somebody leaves, behind them is always somebody else being like, oh man, what is work going to be like without this person? How am I going to deal with the everyday? How am I going to do this? Or, hey, this isn't coming on me anymore. I can leave too, right? Somebody else leaves, and even if you have developed a culture where it's like, you're lucky to have this job, then somebody leaves and they're like, wait a second, maybe I'm not that lucky to have this job. Maybe I'd be luckier if I had a different job. And then you lose more talent, and it happens again. So, basically the lesson is that if you stifle your talent's growth, you stifle your company's growth. So, how do you fix that, right? I talked about in my last blog a culture of trust. There was an interview that I did with Emily Allen from Sierra Interactive, and she talked about the culture of trust at Sierra Interactive. That might have been for an article. I wrote an article for Philly.com called How to Get Hired at the Top Companies in the Area, which included, so I interviewed EVP of HR from Comcast, Sierra Interactive, Accolade, QVC, and Aramark, I believe. And Emily, said, we have a culture of trust. They even have unlimited vacation time. And they just have this honor system where they expect nobody's going to take full advantage of this because they have an awareness of how that impacts other people. So they kind of just say, we're going to hire people that we trust are going to be conscious of all that. Or maybe they even, make sure through their onboarding process that there's increased mindfulness, as people go through their onboarding program. They have this trust. Now, if you're in a company where bombs have been dropping, people have been laid off, the trust is broken, right? No, everybody's kind of on edge. They don't know where their future is, they're talking to me. They're like, I like my company, but layoffs are happening, or they're closing down this division, or they're relocating this division to somewhere else, or they're talking potential acquisition. Whenever anybody gets in that kind of limbo, I don't know what's going on here, they come reach out and talk to somebody like me, who's going to say, let's get you prepared. Let's even see if we can make this an opportunity for you to find some place where you're happier, where there's less stress, where you can feel more certain about your future, and where you're valued. Most importantly, valued in terms of your opinion, your expertise, and for your time in terms of money. And that's what I help people do, and they're able to do that. And there's not been a case, of a person that that has come to me that hasn't had a situation that I wasn't able to help them with. So, especially people who have worked in companies where they have the culture of like, you're lucky to have this job. Well, they've learned that they might have stayed a little bit too long. They weren't as lucky as you made it sound. But you have to earn honesty. You have to earn trust, right? So if you're talking about the growth of your talent, you need your talent to be honest with you about what direction they want to grow in. And if they feel like their job might be at stake, if they say, I don't really like what I'm doing, then they're probably not going to tell you that they don't really like what they're doing. And they don't have to say it that way, of course, and it could be like, well, I really like this area over here. I really feel like that. Another thing is if sometimes in companies there's this like, this department is revered, usually sales, right? Sales is all revered. They get all the glory. But then maybe, tech support, administrative support, or just as an example, I'm not saying anything, but who did I talk to? Or they said somebody's physically located in a basement in the company, and so they had a conversation. They make sure that these people in the basement are involved and part of everything, and that they get just as many perks and accolades as people in the department that get to be out. So that was a phone call coming in. I thought I stopped that, but so. You have to create a space for them where they can be honest about that. And if it's not you as a manager, as a leader, if they can't come to you for maybe bureaucratic, administrative reasons, maybe you can't see how you can help them make this, this is a coaching faculty. This is a function of coaching where people are able to come to you and they're able to tell you their hopes and dreams for real. And tell you all the things that they see as challenges around that, or why it's their hopes and dreams, and does that fit in with the company. So a leader, a manager may not be an appropriate person to even have that conversation with them. This is when you would bring in an outside coach like me to talk to them to see that. Now, of course, everything would have to remain confidential, but there'd be a way to work with managers and leaders and say, let's develop a plan, or really only reveal what's relevant to the company. It's the potential is that you might be losing somebody because maybe their aspirations are not something that this company can accommodate, but this person is probably going to leave anyway, or they're not engaged in what they're doing right now. You might be better off if somebody who was engaged in that role comes into that role. So if you don't have the kind of relationship with your staff and workforce right now where they might be able to be completely honest about what their aspirations are, then you would want to bring in a coach like me. And as long as talent feels listened to, that's the first step in establishing a culture of trust, right? That they're listened to, that they feel like, wow, they really care, because nobody cares what you know unless they know that you care. So the first thing is listen. But the second thing is, because a lot of people have these systems where they can talk to their manager, but then nothing is done. And then it's like, okay, well, that did nothing. Maybe it even did some harm. I don't know. So I'm not going to talk anymore. So, there goes the trust again. So not only do you have to listen, but you have to take some kind of action that enables your talent to see where they're going to be able to grow and expand, both at work and at home. So that's my bit. And I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear your input. I'd love to hear your personal stories about companies you might have worked for, obviously confidentially. You can private message me if you want to talk more about this. Of course, these are things that I could talk about for days, but we only have 15 minutes together, and you probably have to get back to work, so I'm going to let you do that. Come back next week. Like my page, please. Share it. with anybody you think can relate to what's going on in companies these days with all this talent leaving. And I'll see you next week.